It's time to accelerate. Hey friends, this is Andy. Welcome to episode 670 of Accelerate. Now, I have two great guests lined up for you today. Joining me first will be Jill Stanton. Jill's the co-founder of Screw the 9 to 5. And following my talk with Jill will be another in my series of weekly conversations with my friend Bridget Gleason. Today's show is brought to you in part by our friends at Discover.org. The Discover.org platform is the game changer for sales and marketing professionals. This feature-rich sales intelligence platform is supported by more than 250 researchers who continually update contact data and provide account-specific insight to help sales and marketing teams break ahead of the pack. See the product live at discoverorg.com/schedule-demo. All right, first up today is my guest, Jill Stanton. Jill is co-founder with her husband Josh of Screw the 9 to 5. This is a really incredible resource to help lifestyle entrepreneurs, digital nomads, learn how to start and run their own businesses successfully. And today we're really going to dive into how to build a career on your own terms. Among the things we'll cover are why successful entrepreneurs have to continually keep learning. I can never stop learning. And this is, a topic I talk a lot about here on Accelerate. It doesn't matter whether you're in sales or whatever career you have, is you have to keep learning. And we're also going to talk about how to successfully manage the dual demands of your work and your personal lives as an entrepreneur. And perhaps most importantly is how to think about what you're doing is not just starting a company, but how to start a movement around your product or your service and how to maintain the momentum of that movement. So, all right, here we go. Jill Stanton, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm pumped to dive in.
Well, it's my pleasure to have you here. So actually, I think it's unusual maybe to find you in one spot.
Currently in one spot for a few more days, yes.
Because, between you and your husband, you've started numerous businesses and run them far-flung places. Digital nomads, I guess. Digital nomads, I think the term is, right?
Yeah. We get around. Not so much nomadic anymore now that I have a 4-month-old, but right. I'm sure we'll kick that back up once he can actually keep up with us.
Yeah, well, believe me, that's going to be sooner than you wish.
I know it. He's already wanting to stand and we're like, you're 4 months. How is this happening? He's like, we call him a drunk meerkat because he stands super straight, but then wobbles around. So it's quite cute.
Yeah, my son was a similar thing. He was like 6 months old. He was pulling himself up and starting to cruise a little bit along the furniture. And we had friends who already had kids, and they said, "Don't let him do that." It's like, wow.
I was interviewing nannies yesterday and she was like, "So what's your son like?" And I was like, "Well, I want to encourage him with skill building and blah, 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 because he's a baby genius." Just kidding. I'm not really. He actually is.
Well, we're all pretty convinced of that until they persuade us otherwise.
Exactly.
So you and your husband, Josh, are founders of a business called Screw the 9 to 5. And when I first heard about it and started looking at what you guys are doing, the initial thought was, well, hey, this is sort of like, Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week type thing. But that's not really what you're talking about.
No.
So tell us a little bit about what your mission is.
Well, essentially, we just help entrepreneurs. It's a lifestyle brand for entrepreneurs, basically, is what it is. So we like to touch on the topic of business, health, and life, still building out the health side of things, but that's the future vision. Essentially, we help people, entrepreneurs, get more traffic, make more money, and really scale their businesses. So whether they're just starting out and wanting to figure out all the moving pieces of this, or they've got some revenue under their belt and they're looking to go to 6 figures or 6 to 7, we're kind of like a very broad brand, which is why we kind of wanted to move towards a lifestyle brand for entrepreneurs, because once you started making money, now that you've got that sorted, because if you can make $100, you can make 1,000. If you can make 1,000, you can make 10, blah, blah, blah. Then money doesn't become as important, right? Then you have things like relationships and investing and health and optimizing and team and all this kind of stuff. And there's so many other pieces to entrepreneurship. So we wanted to create a brand that caters to that.
Okay. Well, is there a contradiction in there because you talk about, once you have money, then you can start paying attention to these other things, but the other things are always important.
Totally. But in the let's keep it real. When you're first starting, your number one focus is to make money, right? Like you work until your eyes bleed. You typically kind of like, just push the other stuff to the side. At least that was our experience,
Sure.
right? Like I wouldn't eat as much as I should, or I would eat crappier food than I should.
Stress eat, yeah.
Or stress eat, binge eat, emotional eat. Or I would kind of sacrifice my social life for a bit. So that's why we say, like, once you've cracked the how to make money side of things, then the other pieces fall into place. And that's kind of the stuff we want to start talking about as well. So it's not always just how to make money online, because there's so much more to entrepreneurship.
Right. Well, I mean, people oftentimes choose entrepreneurship because of the lifestyle. And the lifestyle is not necessarily that you work less. I think that, I mean, for me, when I read something like Screw the 9 to 5, it's really not about working less. It's about having control over when you do work and so on, which to me then says, well, you can still devote time to your relationships and the things you need to. I mean, I think that's one of the great things about the tools and technologies we have these days, is that perhaps you don't have to, I mean, you're still going to sacrifice your time, but you do it in a way that it's not as sacrificial of the other things in your life.
Yeah. And I guess like I just didn't know any better when we first started our first business in 2012 together. So like we would sit there and work a lot, and we sacrificed weekends with friends to get the momentum going and all of that kind of stuff. So
which we all do at some point.
Yeah.
I just think about my own experiences. I left corporate America, so to speak, after working for startups for a long time and traveling, spending all my time traveling the world, and I reached that point where I missed a birthday, which really just devastated me. And really that sort of helped flip the switch to say, how could I do this differently, right? And that was, for me, was the spur of entrepreneurship, is that starting a company and working for myself, dictating my own hours, was able to ensure where the kids were sort of in that prime activity stage so that I didn't miss a thing. So I think for entrepreneurs, I think increasingly there is this sense that not so you can necessarily have it all, but that you can do it more on your own terms.
Yeah, totally. And truthfully, I want to have it all. I just don't want to do it all. That's hence why I was saying I was interviewing nannies yesterday. Like, I want to have it all. I want to have a great family life. I want to have a great marriage. I want to have a great business. It's just, I don't want to be the one to juggle all of that myself. So hence finding. And I feel like I stumbled on Living, Breathing Mrs. Doubtfire yesterday. And I said to Josh, like, I'm hitting the gas. We found Mrs. Doubtfire. She's going to be our house mom.
So she's going to be like a live-in nanny?
Not live-in yet. I need to dip my toes in. But yeah, we'll start part-time first.
Well, you guys have had a really interesting journey, because before we started recording, as you listed, I think about a dozen places where you've lived, that you and Josh had lived together, where at the same time you were, and this, I guess the point I was making is, you were building businesses in, what you might consider somewhat exotic locales, certainly not home.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that, because that, to me, I think for a lot of people, it's really fascinating, is to think that, I think you got to be so grounded these days in order to start your own business, and you really don't. I mean, again, you have control over the time and where you do these things.
Yeah. So the only thing you really need is strong Wi-Fi, right? Pretty much. In a decent time zone. That was the only struggle we found with living in Asia. I loved living in Asia.
Well, tell us about some of the places where you lived.
Yeah. Thailand for a good chunk of time. Also spent some time in Malaysia, Beijing. We did a little stint, just a trip to Cambodia, a trip to Vietnam. But when I met Josh, he was living in Beijing. So I was always like, I'm not living in Asia. Like, how would I do that? And then over the years, I softened to the idea and I loved it. So the only hiccup there was the time zone. We were getting up at like 4 a.m. to do webinars. Right. But other than that, it's fantastic.
So what sort of dictated which place you went to? I mean, was it just, hey, I'm interested, let's go?
Well, we did Thailand because at the time, so this was back in 2012 when we first started our first business together. We had found this podcast it's now called Tropical MBA. At the time, it was called Lifestyle Business Podcast. And they had a community called the Dynamite Circle, which we joined. It was like a forum of digital nomads. And they had a huge hub over in Vietnam and Saigon and in Chiang Mai, Thailand.
Really? Okay.
A few others. And like, there's one in Germany, there's one in Bali. but the one in Chiang Mai, we just loved. Like, it felt like we found our people, right? So we stepped off the plane, instantly had a network of people who got what we were trying to do. They were doing the same kind of thing. Everyone was like trying to optimize their lifestyle, make the most out of the money they were making.
Sure.
Health was a big priority, and we would all do trips together. It was just such a cool experience. So the people was what dictated the move to Thailand, plus curry and coconut waters and really cheap drinks,
right.
And beaches. And then from there, we desperately realized that we needed to be back on a decent time zone if we really wanted to take things up a notch. It's very hard to communicate with a team who's over on this side of the world when we're on that side of the world. So there were just like little elements there that influenced our decision from moving back from Thailand to Toronto. But it was such a special time in our lives. And we're super pumped to go back and actually take Kai there, because there's a ton of digital nomad families living there, like ones with babies. And it was just such a cool experience to see how they're kind of hacking their lifestyle. So
I had a guest on the show about a year and a half or so ago who was RVing across Mexico and with 2 or 3 kids. And
I bow down to that. That's impressive.
Yeah. And he was just looking for a campground with great Wi-Fi, basically. And
do those exist in Mexico?
Apparently, yeah. He was finding some. We were able to do a Skype interview. It worked out pretty well for him. But
with video?
No, it was audio only.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's before sort of the big video craze here. But but yeah, so I have to admit, I was very, very impressed by that. I mean, I have a hard time staying organized enough living in New York City as opposed to in Chiang Mai.
I didn't know you lived in New York City.
Yeah, well, I split time between New York and San Diego, so
rough life.
It is. But somebody has to do it.
Yeah.
So you've have a partnership with your husband. I mean, how do you split up who does what?
That is okay. So it took us a while to figure that out, actually. So now I'm like, oh, it's super easy. But like 2 years of battles and divorce days, as I call them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, who's in charge?
Is that a real question?
Well,
Come on,
I had to ask.
Andy,
yeah,
come on. But truthfully, one thing we realized is after all the so we started our business the year we were getting married. Like, don't do that, because it was full of
second thoughts, right?
Are we going to get married? And then the second year of our business was our first year of marriage. So it was definitely tough, but it forced us to figure this out. So we learned that we really needed to identify our strengths and what we like doing, and then divide and conquer and not go into each other's lanes. So Josh very much handles all of our paid content. Like, he does all the training. He leads all the webinars. He does all the automation and the strategy. He thinks up a lot of big ideas. He does things like onboarding our team, that kind of stuff. And I do this kind of stuff, like presence. I do all the content creation, like the writing, all the emails, the promotions, if we're doing affiliate promotions, or if we're ever doing we have a promotion for our program 90-day traffic coming up. So I've done all that. And then I do the groups and all of that kind of stuff. So we just divide our strengths, conquer our own little areas. And then he does not mess with my side, and I do not mess with his side. And it's been glorious since we figured that out.
And do you guys have a team now, a virtual team or an actual team?
We've just started building our local team, which is great. So we have our integrator, if you've ever read Rocket Fuel or Traction. So essentially like our number 2, the backbone to our business. Her name is Nikki. She's in Toronto, so she's fantastic. And she very much handles a lot of our projects. She's now starting to hire other team members and onboard them, train them. She does a lot of the back end side of things. Then we have a community coach and customer support, and then a tech and billing person and a graphics person so far, but we're looking to expand. Wow.
And are those virtual or actual employees?
Customer support, community, tech and billing, and graphics are all virtual as of right now. Yeah. But Alicia, who does community and customer support at the moment, she's like a 5-hour drive. So she'll come up quite a few times.
And don't forget Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yes, of course. Mrs. Doubtfire, my saving grace.
All right. So one of the things I really wanted to get into is you labeled, and you talked about this earlier, is you label what you do a movement.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, more and more people are sort of using this term. I'm sort of always fascinated by what people think about it. So yeah, from a marketing standpoint, as you're thinking about positioning what you're doing, what's a movement?
Well, to me, it really started to click when people were using our brand name as a verb. And I was like, oh, damn, we're on to something here. Because they would say, I screwed my 9 to 5, or I can't wait to screw my 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
Or they labeled themselves scroopies. People inside our private community have called themselves scrammly. So there's things like they're identifying as followers or believers of this brand. They use it in a verb setting. And once that started to happen, I was like, this is a movement, right? It's what everyone who is stuck in a job they hate wants to do. They want to screw it. They want to get out of it. They want to call the shots in their own lives and figure out what that looks like for themselves. And so I do everything I can to kind of foster that without losing my own mind. I've had experiences in the past where I've kind of just given all of myself to that kind of thing and ended up getting super burnt out and slightly resentful. And having a baby really forced me to kind of like, I was a stage 5 clinger before for all of our audience members. I had to know everything that they were doing.
Right.
I had to be in control. I had to be the chick. And now, so since we had Kai, that's definitely settled down.
Yeah, well, it is life transforming, right?
Yeah.
In ways you never expect. Yeah. I remember flying back from New York, actually back to San Diego with a friend at one point, years and years ago, and his wife was pregnant at the time with their first child, and I'd already had mine. And he said, what's the big change? I said, well, the first big change is you just can't believe that the instant you see this person materialize, that they mean everything to you. And how everything changes instantly. And he sort of looked at me like, I was reading out of a playbook or something. I said,
because you don't believe it.
Yeah, I said, you just wait. You'll understand.
I didn't believe it. Like I talked about this on a few other podcasts. Like I was really scared I was going to hate being a mom because
I'm sure that's not uncommon.
Yeah. Well, the more I started talking about it, the more I realized, no, it's not uncommon at all.
Right.
Which was very kind of comforting. But yeah, you nailed it when you said they mean everything to you right away.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny. You don't hear men as often say, I'm scared of becoming a dad, right? I mean, it's right. I mean,
totally.
It's true.
Because they're like, oh, I'll figure it out. Meanwhile, women are like, oh my God, what does this mean?
Well, I think there's also an assumption that the woman's going to carry more of the load of it. See, right? Rightly or wrongly.
That's true.
So I think that plays into it just a little bit.
I think so.
So getting back to this movement is one question I always wonder is do we sort of over glamorize the whole idea of being an entrepreneur? And this idea of being in control because I know I know a fair number of people actually who thought that having control by being an entrepreneur, or thought by being an entrepreneur they'd have that control, and actually what they've done is they've gone back to corporate life because what they really just wanted was to carve out their own niche. Yeah. And especially because it's primarily sort of sales-oriented audiences. And so I'm talking about people that were in sales, where they were senior people in sales, but would say, yeah, I just really wanted to manage territory. I'm good at it. I can do it in 30 hours a week. I can spend the time. I do have control over, even though I work for somebody, I do have that control over my life. And I thought, well, that's interesting. We sort of have this mythology that really to get that control, you have to work for yourself, but it's possible to also do it working for other people. And I don't think we encourage that enough.
Well, and I'm sure that, I've never worked a corporate job, to be honest. I was a bartender. So my 9 to 5 was like 9 PM till 5 AM. So I don't know what it's like to sit in a cubicle and hate what you do.
Right.
But I sure as shit know what it's like to hate a 9 to 5 because I hated my bartending job. I was probably the angriest bartender you could get served by, at least towards the end, because I did it for so long.
Well, what pissed you off?
Just the dumb questions, or like, I was so jaded, like shitty tips. I would just be like, I would flick coins back at people. I was a real bastard towards the end. I very much needed to quit that job. I would like spray pop on my bar and put people's change in it. Oh my God.
Pop is the cleanser or something?
Oh, sorry. Like soda.
Oh, soda. Yeah.
You
okay.
Americans, you're so funny.
Yeah. Well,
soda pop.
Actually, in Wisconsin where I grew up, they called it pop, but I've forgotten that. So yeah.
My bar partner and I would spray the bar with pop and put people.
So it just gets sticky.
Such a dick move. But it worked. So, but yeah. So I absolutely agree. I don't think everyone should be an entrepreneur. I don't think everyone has a stomach for it. There's a lot of ups and downs. There's you need to have a strong tolerance for risk, and the feels that you feel. The ups and downs, the stresses and the successes. You need to keep your feet on the ground once you do start hitting some solid momentum and some solid wins. It's easy to get very like, oh my God, I figured it all out.
Complacent.
I can take my foot off the gas now. And both Josh and I have certainly been there. We took our foot off the gas and it sucked once that momentum slows it down. And I've seen a lot of people kind of bail out of entrepreneurship because they're like, you know what? I thought this would be easier. And I'd much rather have something that's secure and steady, and I just know what to expect, and I can shut my brain off at night. Whereas us entrepreneurs are like a different breed of crazy. And so while we are when we aren't working, we're still kind of sort of thinking about work, So
oh yeah, no, this is actually for people in sales. If they've listened to this podcast at all, they know that I believe there's never an off switch. Yeah, it's the thing about being in sales. The sales is extremely entrepreneurial, even if you're working for a company.
I can imagine, yeah.
If you don't treat it that way, then it's problematic, quite honestly. And it always drives me crazy to talk to people in sales, professionals who think that life is an open book test, and if they need to, learn anything or recall anything, they can go to their system and drag it out, as opposed to just constantly having it back there ruminating, which is, you said, very entrepreneurial, but I mean, it's a mindset that salespeople need to have as well.
I was talking to a nanny that I was interviewing yesterday, and she said, oh yeah, I just want to do this part-time because I'm starting my own business. And I was like, cool, I'm going to stop you right there. This isn't a good fit. Because I train entrepreneurs and I know how distracted you can be. And like, if I'm going to hire a nanny, I want your attention on our son. I don't want you thinking like, what can I do to make more sales? Like, you're not even present at that point. You know what I mean? So I just it was like a 3-minute interview.
Yeah. Well, yeah. What she's doing doesn't scale. That's a 1-to-1. And she is.
Well, she had this whole she had this whole daycare software idea, which was a fantastic idea. I said, that sounds like a great idea. You should do it, but I'm not going to hire as a nanny.
Yeah.
I know what that looks like. So, yeah.
So having started a movement, how do you sustain a movement?
Yeah. I mean, it certainly ebbs and flows. And when it ebbs, you get like, oh my God, is our time over? And when it flows, you're like, this is the greatest feeling in the world. So you sustain it by presence, consistency, value, impact, asking people what they want, like keeping your finger on the pulse. That's the biggest one. Like, I'm always asking inside our free group, what do you guys want? Or is this a good idea? Or would you want this? Or do you want to learn about this? Or what podcast topic should we talk about? All of that kind of stuff. I'm always just going directly to the source so I can continue to create a really rad free space for people to hang out in, and a really solid brand that people actually want to give a damn about.
You say you ask those questions within your free group. You also have a private group, though, too, right?
I do, yeah.
So we have don't you ask the questions in both places?
I do, but I mean, they get access to all of our stuff.
Sure.
So they get like the benefits or the plus side of me doing all of that market research, because I'm like, fantastic, I'll create that, we'll sell it, but I also put it in our paid community and they just get access to it. But I mean, Josh has certainly done polls inside of our paid group. And then honestly, we do a lot of live calls with them, a lot of live coaching calls, a lot of Q&As. So it's very easy to keep an eye on what they're wanting, where they're stuck, and like the common themes that consistently pop up.
Yeah, well, I think really the theme for me is, I hear what you're talking about, which is a big theme for me, which is you have to keep learning.
Yeah.
And you talked about taking your foot off the gas. I think when you get complacent, then you stop learning. And if you stop learning, then yeah, all hell's going to break loose. Yeah. And this is something that's just not an issue for entrepreneurs. It's increasingly an issue in the workplace for sales in particular. Sales marketing is, one of the downsides, if there is one, of the internet, is people get a little knowledge. They think they know everything. And as a consequence, then they sort of get self-satisfied and they stop learning. And that's a bad place to be in, because the world's not changed. The world's not stopping changing. But, the pace of change is evolving and accelerating. So, I think that's really a good sort of a good warning for people, or lesson for people is, again, even if they're not running a group like yours, is if they have a customer base, is you have to be continually talking to them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It makes everything so much easier.
Yeah, because they're telling you what to do.
Yeah. And they're like thousands of mini bosses for me. Do this, create this, shoot this. So I'm just like,
I'll do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So is there a specific sort of segment of markets that your entrepreneurs primarily fit in? What are you seeing as like the big trends that people are getting into?
The ones that we best serve, that we know the most about, are people who have courses, membership sites specifically, because we've had one for 3 years now. Services, coaches, speakers, authors, even affiliate marketers, anything that's personality driven. Like anyone who has a personality driven brand, I know for a fact Josh and I can help them in a big way. Even if they're just like, or maybe even not personality driven, but content marketing driven. Someone who uses content marketing in their business, we can help shift and change their business in big ways. And
so give people an example of what you would do to shift in a big way.
Okay. So for example, one of our programs is called 90-Day Traffic, and it gives people a structure and a system to not only create really solid, like think of them as like ultimate guides, these big, we call them cornerstone content. They're big pieces of content. So an example, if you were on the Screw, would be our post on webinars. So screwthe95.com/webinars. That's like a huge blog post I wrote. I think it's like 12,000 words or something insane like that. All about how to create, host, and close with webinars. And it is monetized strictly through affiliate links, which I love. I love affiliate revenue. It's our favorite form of revenue in our business. Or then we have another post like how to get more website traffic, and it leads into 90-day traffic. Or I have a post around Facebook groups, and it leads into a training Josh and I did with David Siteman Garland. Or we have a post around how to create a sales funnel, and it leads into our course, Perfect Sales Funnel. So there's these like big pillar posts that not only rank on Google and get organic traffic, which is perfectly aligned with what you're trying to sell, but it gets shared. You can promote them over and over. You can ask other influencers to come in and give quotes and then share them out to their audience. It's just a fantastic way to not only build organic traffic, but make passive income. So that's one kind of piece of that framework. And then the second one is what we call community content and stuff like this, doing podcasts, or if you're a blog writer, you write blog posts, or if you shoot videos. So we have a system that allows you to batch 3 months of content in 7 days. So we give people that procedure so they can just plug it into their business. And then there's the third piece, which is like promotional content. So that's me doing this kind of stuff. Guest posts, getting featured places. And then there's the first element is how to track it all, like how to set up all your data side of things. So using content marketing, which is a perfect example of that in itself, that's something we can help people implement in their business that will not only give them their time back, because you're not sitting there creating every day, all day, every single week, being like, what should I write this week? You have a whole system there. And then we have this cornerstone piece, which continuously attracts new organic traffic and just expands your audience in bigger ways. Or, for example, if it were to be about sales funnels, like we have this whole training around how to implement that in your business. Or if you wanted to learn community building with free groups, like we have that whole system. So all of that, we believe, is related to content marketing, whether it's community content, promotional content, organic SEO driven content, all of that helps to build these brands. And if you think about it, some of the biggest brands use that stuff in their business, i.e. Pat Flynn, Neil Patel.
Sure.
things like Tone It Up, which is, I love those chicks, Karina and Katrina, which is like a fitness and health and lifestyle brand, or like Pop Sugar, like any of these huge content networks that have ginormous audiences have been built off the back of content marketing.
Yeah, and it's the thing that I think that's most intimidating to entrepreneurs.
Totally, because you're like, I don't want to sit there and write content all day, every day until my eyes bleed. And we're like, cool, we have a system.
Yeah,
Here you go.
Yeah, one piece a week.
Yeah. Well, you can batch it all, and like the cornerstone pieces, that's like 80% of your traffic, truthfully, off like 20% of your content, which is hello, sexy leverage.
Well, good. Well, we're running out of time. So tell folks how they can get in touch with you guys and learn more about what you do.
Yeah, the easiest way is just to head on over to screwthe9to5.com, all spelled out, or come join us in our free group. And that's just screwcommunity.com.
On Facebook. All right. Perfect. Well, Jill, thank you very much. And say hi to Josh for me.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thanks. Thank you, Jill. Again, that was Jill Stanton. Joining me next, as always at this time, is my friend Bridget Gleason. Bridget is Vice President of Sales at logs.io. And today, Bridget and I are going to talk about what it takes for a salesperson to become interesting to her or his prospects. And so we're going to share some really practical and proven strategies that you can use to authentically connect on a personal level with your buyers. Start building that really essential relationship. All right, let's jump into it. Bridget, how are you doing?
Andy.
So I hear some clicking noise. Is that you?
That's it's Slack messages coming.
Well, it's funny because I said Bridget. I goes click.
Click. Yeah. Do you see? I've got this power of
you do
making the computer and electronic devices do things.
Yes.
Around.
You're a mentalist. Right.
I'm a mentalist. I want to, and I'm just now until I can. I don't know what I'm going to have it do, but
you're going to do bigger
things, like the little things.
You're going to go have a Vegas show.
All right. Does it have to be in Vegas?
No, it could be at Atlantic City.
Ugh. I guess I'd have to like those shows. Oh, well.
Yeah. All right. So how are you doing? Good?
Andy. Great. Fantastic.
Great. Fantastic. Okay.
And you?
Good. Hot. I mean, it's
hot.
Horrible hot day in New York. And yeah, I have to make sure as we found out last episode, I really have to have the air conditioner off when we talk.
Yes.
So, yeah. So this is sort of like losing weight, wearing a rubber suit type thing. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, see, it has a dual purpose. See?
A dual purpose. Yes.
That's good. Lucky you.
Lucky me. Slimming down as we talk. So today I thought we'd talk about what it takes to be interesting in sales.
Okay. Are we bringing a guest speaker to help us? Or just us, me and you?
The two most boring people in the world. Right. No, but I mean, this is an aspect that if we're trying to, again, following the theme we've talked about, we're in the relationship business. In order to connect and engage with another person, we have to be interesting to them. And I mean, actually, relationships in general, whether it's in sales or in life, we have to be interesting. So I guess the question is, what's it take to be interesting? And for a salesperson to be interesting. And I read a number of articles about this, and one I sort of liked was saying that to be interesting to someone else is you have to be, and this was not talking specifically about business, but saying that you have to be well-informed and you have to be ready to stray outside your comfort zone.
Huh. I hadn't heard that. I mean, what I always hear when that question is asked, you probably heard it as well, is the best way to be interesting is to be interested.
Oh, we're going to get to that. I mean, I absolutely believe that's true. Yes.
So to be, I think this aspect of curiosity, because who people like to talk about the most? Themselves. And so people find other people interesting often when all they're doing is a mirror that's reflecting back. So I would say that's one, being interested. It helps if you are genuinely interested.
Yeah, and we sort of talked about that a couple weeks ago with I think I talked about you and I brought up the Anthony Bourdain quote about what he said was, what he does isn't complicated. It just shows up and acts interested.
Yeah.
And that's,
I like
what we do.
I like what you said, to be informed. And I think people who are informed are generally just curious. Mm-hmm. And so it's very easy to be looking about what's going on in the world. I hadn't heard or pondered this notion of getting outside your comfort zone.
Well, yeah, I think that this really aligns with the whole thing, because I think it's sometimes hard for people to ask questions of other people on a personal nature. Let's say, let's take the whole small talk issue, right? That's hard for some people. A lot of times it's just, I want to dive right into my pitch, and they like it when the customer says, okay, what do you do? As opposed to investing some of themselves, because I believe that when you're asking somebody a question, a small talk or whatever, you're opening yourself up to the possibility they're going to ask about you in return. And a lot of people are just really uncomfortable talking about themselves. They don't like being vulnerable. And the vulnerability actually is another way to make yourself interesting to people, is to demonstrate that you're a real person, demonstrate you're an authentic person, that you've got concerns and fears and so on and so forth. And, without, turning your prospect into your therapist, I mean, it's okay to be, like I said, outside your comfort zone and vulnerable.
Yeah, I don't like small talk. I don't feel very comfortable with small talk either. I'd rather talk about something.
It's small talk. Can be meaningful as well. I mean, it's not like just how's the weather, right? That's
boring.
That's boring, right?
You're saying small talk doesn't have to be boring. That's true. That's
just
true.
Something that's of interest to them. And it could start with a question. Hey, I see a mug from this restaurant on your shelf. I've had that with customers. Yeah, it's interesting. I've heard of that restaurant. Why do you like it? Or who knows what? But it's just something you connect, something that you see. It invites the possibility that they're going to say, well, that's what do you like?
True. It's funny, Andy, very rarely do I hear people as inquisitive or asking back, particularly once they start talking about themselves. They tend to like to stay on that topic.
Yeah, some definitely do. I mean, that's how researchers built whole industries around that whole idea of appealing to people's vanity to get them to talk.
Yeah.
But I think if it's done in the method that we talked about before, is a couple weeks ago, is you have an authentic interest, right? It doesn't mean that you're going to go home and write a book about something, but when I meet a potential prospect, I want to know about this person, because the more I know about this person, the better I feel I have an opportunity to win their business. So, asking a question, just like opening a door, and then I sincerely am interested, because for me, it's a prime motivation of starting the conversation, is learn more about them, because I want to help them, and if I can help them, then ultimately I benefit as well.
Yeah, I think too on this this notion of being well informed. I often in conversation I find someone interesting who's got knowledge about something that I don't know about. Mm-hmm. And so a good conversationalist can sort of follow the breadcrumb trail, and pick up on things that are maybe interesting or interest. Sometimes it's what you see in an office or an environment that you can pick up on. And like I had mentioned to one of the guys on my team, that I was telling him how on the executive team at Logs.io, everyone is served in the military.
Mm-hmm.
Most people in Israel, it's compulsory,
Right.
but we've got our CMO here who was in the Army.
The U.S. Army.
The U.S. Army.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, gosh, here these people are out like doing meaningful work at that age. And I was, sweeping up popcorn at Marineland. And he said,
Marineland, that brings back memories. Go ahead.
He said, Marineland, there's this great documentary. Have you seen the documentary Blackfish about the killer?
Yeah.
And I said, no. And he started telling me about this documentary. I watched it that night. But he took a comment oh yeah, I worked at Marineland, and said, oh, do you know about the killer whales and them being in captivity? And it was a really interesting conversation. And another one that I'm just thinking about some of them that happen here at the office. I don't know, for whatever reason, we talk a lot about books. We talk a lot about podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
We talk a lot about diets. And it's not me.
Yeah.
But I think people are bringing different pieces of information to the table. And there's a lot of just curious dialogue that happens. And I think that's kind of what you want to foster also in kind of a sales relationship.
Absolutely.
How can I listen to what's being said, a comment, whether maybe it's about a family vacation, where are you going? You had mentioned you're going to be going up to Maine. Oh, last time I was in Maine. I don't have a story about Maine, a story about family vacation, but I think being able to, connect the dots and not being afraid to do so, just to take the conversation in places maybe it wouldn't just...
Well, like the person on your team. I mean, that's a perfect example, right? As they took a cue, they had some knowledge based on, just being aware of something. I mean, not everybody in the world has watched Blackfish, but...
It's a great documentary.
Yeah. Well, it's in our backyard in San Diego. But...
Yes, and as an aside, San Diego was the one when they shut down Marineland and they airlifted Orky and Corky under the cover of darkness to your neck of the woods, to San Diego.
Really?
Yeah, they had told the community when they bought Marineland that, we wouldn't dream of shutting down, money-sucking Marineland. We want to keep it here. The deal went through. They moved him out that night.
Wow. Yeah, I went to that Marineland, I won't say how long ago, but...
Yeah, it hasn't been there for quite some time.
Yeah, but back when it was on its prime, and yes.
The prime, it was a short-lived prime. Okay, prime was short.
Family vacation that encompassed Disneyland and...
Marineland?
And Marineland, yes.
It was a cute little place.
Yeah. So, but that not to get
now we've gotten way off topic.
And I remember Marineland because
about this podcast, except Marineland and Blackfish.
Yeah. Well, the reason Marineland was memorable is because as a kid I was infatuated with otters. Favorite animal, and Marineland had otters.
Yes,
and that was the highlight of that trip. I remember that.
I could have been there sweeping up popcorn. Were you little?
Yeah.
Okay, then no.
No.
Then no, I was not.
No.
Everybody for the record.
No.
For the record,
yes.
No, I was not.
No, you weren't. So, but I like that. I mean, that's the type of thing. I really think that, I look back on my experience in sales, and I've sold literally around the world, every continent but Antarctica, taking orders from customers, and have traveled too. And I think it was the ability to be sort of interested in them and to be well-rounded, to have some knowledge of what was happening in that country, that city, that part of the world, that enabled me to connect with people. I mean, I really attribute a substantial chunk of my, success over my career to that ability, which a lot of it I think is, as I said, based on just sort of general knowledge and the ability to connect at a human level.
I think I think that is also important, is to be able to establish some connection.
Mm-hmm.
That I think that really helps. And it doesn't mean, I think sometimes people feel that for you to establish that connection and to be really a people person, you also have to be an extrovert.
Yeah,
and
not at all. I'm not.
I am so not an extrovert at all. And so I think the two don't necessarily go hand in hand. You can very much be able to establish rapport and really demonstrate sort of good communication skills and caring and being curious and interested. You don't need to be an extrovert. You don't need to do it all day long. You don't need to go up to strangers.
Well, I think there's some school of thought that says that, extroverts doesn't mean they can't be curious and aren't, but
true.
The tendency is not to be because it's about them.
Yeah, well, and I think an extrovert, I'm obviously no expert on extroverts. Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily that they're maybe narcissistic or not narcissistic. I think it's just they have a different way they get energy. And they get energy by the interaction with other people.
That'd be an interesting question. Are narcissists more likely to be extroverts?
You could probably Google it.
Yeah, okay.
And get a really scientific answer. Okay, it's really scientific, like as good as Harvard study.
Yeah, one sample size. Yeah, yeah, that'd be definitive. All right, we'll look that up for a future episode about narcissism and sales.
Narcissism in sales and extroverts.
Actually, that'd be an interesting topic. Narcissism and sales. We'll definitely have to Google that.
No, we should talk about that one. That would be really interesting. In fact, what's interesting about it, okay, we'll talk about it for 1 minute.
Sure.
Is we're moving to a model, I may have mentioned this, team selling, all team selling, shared quotas. And there's been a lot of discussion about, wait a minute, do you really think this is a good idea? Because a traditional salesperson is very much, what's in it for me? That doesn't necessarily mean that person's a narcissist, but they're very much that, what's in it for me? And who are we going to find if we're not getting those people? And I said, I'm okay if we miss out on a few.
I've never hired a salesperson. Let me rephrase that. I have rejected candidates explicitly who say they're primarily motivated by money.
And do you know, Andy, that I almost didn't get my first job in sales because the hiring manager who ended up hiring me, when he was asking me questions to determine how motivated I was about money, I wasn't enough. Like and he just thought, she's not going to be any good.
Yeah, that's the way they all thought about it. Right? I mean, we were of the generation that, when you start to field sales jobs, as you and I did, what's the first thing the manager wants you to do?
Go buy a new car.
Go buy a new car because you needed a car payment to motivate you to get your butt out of bed in the morning to go make calls.
I know. They really thought so little of us that we were these coin-operated beings that they could just, wind us up, drop a couple quarters in, and away we'd go.
Yeah. No. In fact, I was thinking back as somebody was asking me about this a couple weeks ago. I was thinking back to the cars that we all drove. Yeah, we had a pretty good branch, and not many people drove new cars. I mean, the pressure was there. In fact, my manager was extremely upset with me when I sold my car to somebody else in the branch. And my car was 14 years old when I sold it to that guy.
You know what, Andy? It's so funny. People don't think about it today, but I remember being with my sales manager and we're having a one-on-one. It was early in the morning. And he looks out the window and he said, "Oh, oh my God, that's great. Al just bought a new car. Like he saw him driving in and was enthusiastic. It's funny. I'm like you. There was somebody who I interviewed who wasn't sure if he wanted to make the switch from being a sales engineer to a salesperson.
Mm-hmm.
And he was being paid, pretty well as a sales engineer.
Sure.
He had a nice lifestyle. And yes, the earning potential was better ultimately in sales, but he wasn't sure about this in between time. And oh God, I almost had him fill out a spreadsheet with his expenses. And I said, this is in an interview. Okay.
Right.
And I didn't really bring out a spreadsheet, but it just sounded like he was living too close to the wire. And I said, you do whatever you want, but I think when you go into a new environment, I would want you to be set up to have the greatest opportunity to succeed. And for me, a pressure like that nagging in the background, that's not what would motivate me. I'm
right.
more motivated by having a little bit more runway and being able to figure it out. Otherwise, he's going to go running back to the safety of a previous role, or he could. I don't know. Maybe he would, maybe he wouldn't.
Well, especially with entry-level jobs. I mean, maybe it's not the same as much today, but spent every dime. I mean, when we got started, right? I mean, it was, it was like a new car. I mean, first of all, no one had given me a loan for a new car. But at that point,
I know.
But I mean, we all wanted to go into San Francisco and spend every dollar we had there. We didn't want to, at night, we didn't want to buy a new car to do that.
No, we didn't need anything to, hold us back or any obligations. We wanted as few obligations as possible. So,
yeah. I mean, we had a bunch of funny stories about cars. I mean, we had one guy who worked for me. Actually, I inherited him. He's a previous manager had hired him, but I inherited him. But he couldn't turn his car off. So, because you'd have to jump it, and he only wanted to do that at night. So he would leave his car out. You'd come in from a sales call I remember the first time I came out a sales call, some other sales guy, and this guy's car is right by the side door of the building, and it's idling, and it's empty. We walk in, I go, Dave, is that your car? He goes, yeah, man, I can't turn it off. It's like he went to call sales calls, and so he left his car on all the time.
Oh my gosh, that is great. I had a car like that we couldn't turn off. So I know what it is. Yeah, I had the same, but I graduated from it. But I know the deal. I know the drill.
Yeah. Oh, this is my second car I bought. I did upgrade a little bit after a year. I sold my car to somebody else in the branch and earned my branch manager's undying enmity, and then bought a used car myself, a more recent used car. And then about a year and a half later, I was starting an engine caught fire. I was sitting there. This is in the Bay Area. I lived in Burlingame at the time. Turn on the ignition.
Okay, so then it's time to get a new car. I think that's...
Then I got my first new car, yes. I needed it at that point, so... But,
okay, Andy, do you see how this conversation has just ranged all over the place?
That's why we do it.
From a topic of how do you be interesting to cars catching fire.
All related to sales.
It's all related to sales.
Yeah. I was just glad my car didn't catch fire in front of a prospect's office.
Well, okay, let's also just say why we are just glad your car didn't catch fire with you in it.
That's true too. Well, actually, I was sitting in it. I'd started it.
Oh, God. Okay, so glad that it didn't blow you up. Okay, glad there was no physical harm to any human. How's that?
Yeah, the fire went out pretty quickly. Called the fire department, took it to a car shop. So, any hope here? No. Yeah. Not even salvage, but I think he paid me $25 for the car, something like that, just to get it towed away.
Okay.
So, hey, but I got a new car.
Listen, that's right. And then your sales manager was happy.
Well, no, at that point I was the manager, and I was a little pissed off. I had to buy a new car, but whatever, right? It served as a good example, I guess, to everybody else.
That's right.
So, all right, Bridget, we've got to wrap it up here. I know you've got to go do something.
Always. Never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment. So, any final words of wisdom?
Blackfish. Watch Blackfish.
Watch Blackfish. It's still relevant. Yeah, SeaWorld, by the way, in San Diego, and I know they've got a couple other locations, but they're really hurting. That movie was really the turning point.
I'm sorry.
Well, no, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying it. I just heard a news release they had released earnings sometime in the last couple of months.
I know. Well, if you see what they put,
they're basically they've changed from that to a full-fledged amusement park now, rides and so on and so forth. So they're busy trying to rebrand.
Yes. Okay. Well, I wish them all the best in that.
Yeah, I can.
Let's let the killer whales free.
Free Willy.
Let's free Willy. Okay, so Blackfish, Free Willy. Those are my parts.
All right, new motto for the show. All right, Free Willy Wednesday.
All right. That's right. Okay.
There we go. All right, Bridget, we will talk to you next time.
Sounds great.
Bye. Okay, friends, that was Accelerate for this week. First of all, I want to thank you for joining me. And I want to thank my guest, Jill Stanton, and my weekly co-host, Bridget Gleason. Join me again next week, because I'm really excited to be joined by my guest next week. Join me will be Harvey McKay. Harvey is the author of multiple best-selling books, including one of my all-time favorite business books, Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive, Outsell, Outmanage, Outmotivate, and Outnegotiate your competition. You're really going to enjoy that, so make sure you tune back in for that. And of course, no Accelerate would be complete without swapping stories with Bridget. As always, she'll be joining me for our weekly conversation, so be sure to join us then. Thanks again to our sponsor, Discover.org, for their ongoing support of Accelerate, and thanks again for you joining me. Until next week, good selling, everyone.